What you just saw was a segment from a series of lectures by Leonard Bernstein in 1973, explaining what we call the harmonic series. This concept is very useful in explaining something very important in the world of music and mathematics: equal versus just temperament. To be clear, there are an infinite amount of possible scales, and neither of these is the original way. Like most other things, the Greeks did it first.
Sound, as most of us know, is created by vibrations in the air. The speed of the vibrations is what creates pitch, which is measured in hertz, or cycles per second. For example, 220 hertz is an A, whereas 330 is E. Well, sometimes it's 329.6275569, and you get the picture, but only sometimes.
Hi, so I thought we'd talk a little bit about sound and music, so why don't you first introduce yourself?
I'm Deirdre.
Okay, so my first question is how much do you know about pitch?
Not a lot.
Could you tell me?
I know it's about sound waves and how high or low they might be.
Right, so you're right that it's all about sound waves and that pitch is all about how high or low it is, but what determines that is basically how fast a sound vibrates. So all sound is created by vibrations in the air, and however fast those vibrations are is how high the sound is. That makes sense?
Yes.
Cool. And the next question is, do you understand the concept of octaves?
Not really.
Okay, so basically an octave is a relationship or an interval between two notes where one note vibrates twice as fast as the other note. So why don't I show you, this is A5, and one octave below it would be A4, which vibrates at half the speed as A5.
The lowest A you can hear, A1, is 55 Hz. A2, one octave above, is 110 Hz. A3 is 220, A4 is 440, A5 is 880, and so on. This exists with every octave, of course, not just A. So now we understand how we get octaves, but where do all the in-between notes come from? That's where our different scales come in. I don't mean the major and minor scales. Those are completely different concepts that have nothing to do with the exact pitches of the chromatic scale. Our first scale is called just temperament, which is a very old system that you hear a lot in Baroque music. Just temperament is all based off of the harmonic series. You remember, right? Bernstein explained this concept to us earlier. I'll explain it again though, just to be sure. Let's start with an easy number, 100. When you multiply this number by 2 over 1, you get 200. Now, if you multiply that number by 3 over 2, it becomes 300. 300 times 4 over 3 is 400. And what's 400 times 5 over 4? You guessed it, 500. This pattern is the foundation for the harmonic series. See, for every time a pianist or a saxophonist plays a note at 100 Hz, you're also hearing it at 200 Hz and 300 and so on. You just don't know it. Here's another way to put it. Let's call the lowest note of the series the fundamental. This is the note that you actually perceive. When the fundamental is at 100 Hz, or a very sharp G2, our first note above that is 2 times as high, which is the octave above at G3. 3/2 as high as G3 we have D4, which is the perfect fifth in our just tempered G major scale, like the interval between do and so with solfege syllables. As you go higher in the harmonic series, the notes get quieter and closer together. The just tempered scale is made up of numbers that the ear likes. That is why intervals, like an octave or perfect fifth, sound good. If you want to see how this gives us a full chromatic scale, here's a trick. Start with the fundamental and multiply by 3/2 12 times. The number you have gotten is approximately the original value times 2 to the power of 7. Also, the values you got along the way are the same pitches as this scale.
So I come from India, and there's a lot of bending of notes and that kind of stuff happening. I also sing barbershop in a quartet, and we spend a lot of time tuning. And when it comes to tuning just with your ear, you apparently, I haven't tested this, but you end up singing with just temperament instead of equal temperament, because just is where your ear goes. Big tuning intervals in singing are 1 to 5, 1 to 3, 1 to 4. And when you're actually paying attention to 1 to 5, you know, even a big interval as 1 to 5, you know, that's such a dominant interval.
Yeah.
You can tell when it's off if
Right.
it's just on the piano. When you, as opposed to singing by ear and tuning it exactly where you want it to be, where it sounds the best.
Right.
And so we in the barbershop community spend a lot of time on tuning 1 5, 1 4, 1 3, 1 7, 1 flat 7 basically. I think of the human voice as the ultimate instrument, and everybody else is trying to approximate that.
Right.
So human voice has all kinds of advantages. I mean, the human voice, of course, has so much more flexibility, and
Right.
it's a much bigger palette of color.
And that is how we get the pitches we use today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe and don't forget to smack that like. What? Yes. That's not how we get the pitches we use today. You know, hanging up on people is not as dramatic with smartphones.
So an equal temperament is something where you've got the scale and you've divided it into 12 perfect separations in terms of, you know, the ratio from A to A sharp. Is there an A sharp?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because I can't remember which ones are missing. But
A sharp or B flat. Yeah.
Right. So if you go from A to A sharp, that's basically 1/12 of the possible separation for the whole octave, right?
Right.
Taking a look at the 12th root of 2 for each one of these separations.
Equal temperament is based on an exponential scale. The equation for determining one pitch based on a specific starting pitch is y equals 1.05946 to the power of x times s, where s is the starting pitch and x is how many chromatic tones you need to increase. For example, if you know that A4 is 440 and you want to find G5, then multiply 440 times 1.05946 to the 10th power, because G5 is 10 chromatic tones higher. You would then get 783.99 Hz as your answer. The reason we use equal temperament today instead of just temperament is because it can be used for every key center. Because the ratio between every 2 consecutive notes is the same, it doesn't matter what key you use. The key of C sounds the same as the key of G sharp, which sounds the same as the key of E. My dad and I wrote code using the programming language Ruby to generate the first 8 notes of the harmonic series, and to play songs using 2 different temperaments. Here's a recording of Mary Had a Little Lamb, first with just, then with equal temperament. See if you can hear the difference.
I want to end this video on somewhat of an interesting note. Obviously, this whole video has been interesting. Pfft, duh. But a lot of these concepts can be technically useless to a lot of musicians, which is weird because it's really so important. Why don't I show you a clip from my interview with Jay to help address my point?
if you had a machine tool that was laying out the frets on your guitar, it could do that. Right? But if you're playing a violin or something, some instrument where it's your choice what the notes are, those irrational numbers that are those ratios could be just slightly off and become something like, 7/13 or something like that, where it is a ratio that maybe it takes a millisecond for the beats to catch up, right? But it sounds nice. It harmonizes more nicely.
I just played an infinite amount of different pitches. I mean, depending on how many decimal places you want to go to. Let's say you were in a jam session, and you called a tune and you were like, "Let's play this in just temperament, guys." Everyone would think you were nuts. That's the video. For real this time, I promise. So, smack down that like button and subscribe.